by the military-industrial complex.
It could be seen to move violently forward, violently forward, violently forward.
I'm just a patsy. Let's win there.
I said this once or twice, but it bears repeating. If you like your current insurance, you will keep your current insurance.
You think about the Army and the Navy and the missions they run to protect the world, they run on SAC.
You have done a really spectacular job. I guess pretty much everybody at this table is your customer, so
Exactly.
That's not so bad.
Exactly.
I want to congratulate
Thank you, Mr. President. Thank you.
And we're back. How you doing, George?
I'm glad you're still talking to me. You're number one in, let's see, you're number one in nationalism, number one in radical thought. You're third in communism. You're sixth in democracy.
Yeah, and I'm right behind Ted Cruz in one of those. Ted
I think
Cruz.
in democracy, you're hard on the heels. I don't know how you could be both number three in communism on Amazon Books and number six in democracy, but somehow you've done it.
Well, you know, it's a I would say it's a genre spanning topic, you know. So so it has that effect. But yeah, it's pretty exciting. It's pretty exciting to see something that you did with a number one next to it on Amazon. I'll try not to let it get to my head, but obviously it's gotten to my hair today. It's kind of like I put this jacket on. When my hair wouldn't behave, I thought, well, I might as well go full Steve Bannon. But I
think you've kind of gone. You know, what's the movie with all the writers? You know, the communist writers over there.
Hail Caesar.
Yeah, I think you've gone Hail Caesar on us.
Okay,
I think you're smoking jacket and a pipe now and radical thoughts. You know, there you go.
Oh, yeah. Well, speaking of Hail Caesar, one of the things that I did, I sent out earlier before the show started. Let me see if I can find it. Why doesn't this just show up on the way that it's supposed to? Window. I wanted to show the graphics that I made for the book cover that I posted for the followers of the Duke Report on Buy Me a Coffee, but for some reason it's not showing. Oh, it says Brave tab, and I think I have it open in Chrome. That's why. Okay, here we go. Here we go. Google Chrome. There we go. Share. And yeah. So when I was trying to come up with a cover, I was using GPT. So I posted the different cover tries here for the members who are on Buy Me a Coffee. So it's pretty interesting because I'm pretty convinced that this is the fake logo for the cult that's running the world. They want you all to believe this is the Castle Keep scenario. They want you to believe that this is their logo, but really what their logo is a circumpunct, which is a circle with a dot in the middle. That's their actual logo. So I was trying to do a circumpunct, and it feels very kind of I would say Bolshevik. These graphics.
They do have that kind of great art kind of look to them all. I think this is really great. I mean, I think this is a good time to remind our readers, if you want to beat the algorithm, if you have something to say about free speech, if you have something to say about how our democracy is being undermined, you could do nothing better than buy this book. You can buy it now in paperback, I see, for $9.99.
Yeah, you can buy it in paperback, hardback, and Kindle. It's funny whenever you do so, and you can buy it in virtually every country in the world. But what's interesting is that whenever you do this, you always find that outlier. So there was one person, and I apologize, but they're trying to buy a hard copy in Canada. And you can buy a hard copy in the United States, but you can't buy a hard copy in Canada because it's a print on demand kind of thing. And so we'll figure it out. I'm going to get some hard copies sent to me, and I'll probably do some signed versions. Paul Cottrell wants me on his show tomorrow, so I'm going to talk to Paul Cottrell about the book tomorrow. And then Jeffrey Prather reached out. He wants me to talk to him about the book too. So
great. Those are great interviews, and I'm sure there's several others we go through and get you now that you're working the author circuit. This is really fun to watch. But that's how people find out about your book. John O'Loughlin would be a good show to do.
And John said that he bought the book, so my guess is that he wants to read it. And John, if you want to read the book out loud on your show, go for it. Just do it. Go. Yeah.
Yeah, and he's a great book performer, so that'll give everybody a chance to hear it and read it, because this is a book that has so many footnotes in it, a lot of footnotes, not too much. But,
no, it's got a page of footnotes. But
yeah. But what I think people don't realize, it's not just the Semitism or the charge of Semitism hasn't just been removed. There's also these little instant analysis by Peter Duke at the beginning of every chapter. So you get kind of an instant analysis at the beginning of the chapter, and then you get the kind of the defanged.
I basically included a Reader's Digest version in the book, so you can just read the first paragraph of each principle, and it'll give you the skinny on what's covered in that. And then if you want to go read it, you can. And like I say in the book, if you want to go and compare it to the original, I encourage people to go do that, because this is kind of like a toe in the water, as it were. Once you and I also think that it's a very interesting conceit to look at a lot of different information that we're consuming, because there's so much storytelling that gets wrapped around the empirical evidence of whatever it is that we're looking at, that we tend to, it takes less effort to just listen to a story than to go actually look at the evidence and break it down, which is what we always encourage people to do on this channel, is to go use your critical thinking skills and try to figure out whether or not what that's saying is correct. And, I was talking to Paul Cottrell about it this morning, and I'll probably talk to him about it again tomorrow. But when you remove the cultural component out of it, and you just look at it as a set of policies and procedures for a group of people that want to take over the world, then match it to current events, then it starts to feel unmistakable, like it's not really a thing. And then you have to ask the question, who is doing it? And I told Paul that I don't like identitarian labels, because they have a tendency to narrow your focus. And if you're looking at the metadata, it may not be one group in particular, but it may be individuals that are operating within a numerous amount of groups. And by the way, that's the strategy that they're talking about in the book. I
thought this was a stealth red pill. This book is a stealth red pill for your friends that are blue or real blue, real woke. This is the kind of the unwoke stealth pill, because what will happen is you read it and you go, well, I'm reading about 1905. I'm not reading about now. And then you get all the way through it, and then you go, wait a minute, that happened.
Right.
And then you go, Kissinger. That's what I said, is that Kissinger. One word, I said, I got this. But
you wonder whether or not, because it does look like a playbook, right? And then you look at people like H.G. Wells or Neil Stephenson and all of the people that we talk about as far as predictive programming, George Orwell or Aldous Huxley, and you think, well, if if they were reading from a playbook like this, then making up this dystopian world in Hunger Games isn't really like a big leap, because you know what the rules are for the totalitarian government that is secretly controlling the world. You understand what that is, and then you can just build your own kind of fantasy space on top of that. So it makes things like I said, Neil Stephenson's Snow Crash, or Diamond Age, or H.G. Wells' War of the Worlds, or
Brave New World, Huxley, or 1984. They're like, oh, that's just a derivation on the theme. That's just like a little syncopation from some jazz musician off of this
exactly
main rhythm line. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. So Cindy says, ooh, signed. Yes, please. So here's the deal with signed books. When you have them made by Amazon, if you buy them retail off of the website, they come in a few days. I think if I click on the hardcover, it tells me that you can get it by between December 20th and December 31st. If you're an author and you go to buy copies in bulk so you can sign them and send them out, it takes like 4 weeks. So they put you on a schedule there. So I did order some, but I can't offer them. I can't offer signed ones. Well, maybe I could offer signed ones, but I can just
well, here's what I recommend is do what we did up in Point Loma, or not Loma, but up in the Salt charrette we did, is buy the book now, read it, and then Peter will have a signing out there and come sign them. Or
Indeed.
maybe we'll do it over in Malibu or Pacific Palisades or wherever. But that would be the way to do this, is just, it's wintertime now. It's a good time to go to Southern California, and then people can get their book signed,
Indeed. So George, did you read the book?
Yes, I did.
And it's a quick read, right? It's a couple of hours.
2 hours.
And so what'd you think?
I thought it was great. I really appreciated the author's notes. I thought those were really great, because otherwise, the author's notes kind of give the PD, citations give you a kind of a relevance and an update, and also your angle. I think people want your angle and want your analysis, and that was nice all along the way. And I kind of came away not with all memory of all 22, but I kind of came away with, okay, you're a real underdog, and then you got to go to the next level to be kind of an underdog, to the next level, to the next level, to the next level. Infiltration, and then spying, and then getting control of some of the media, and then,
Blackmail,
compromise, all these things to come from the bottom, literally, like if you're Kissinger, nobody, right, all the way to the top, to when you finally get to the top, you're spying on everybody, and you're taking out your people that are your foes, and you're putting your friends in, and finally you run the whole show, even though you're still that same small majority that was on the bottom. And that's really the scary part of this book. Yeah,
I mean, to me, I'm repeating myself, but the big aha moment to me was Protocol 20, or Principle 20. I labeled it. Doing a hat tip from Benjamin Disraeli, but number 20, the economic system. I read that book Web of Debt by Ellen Brown, and I've read enough LaRouche and Matthew Ehret's stuff to understand the difference between a debt-based and a credit-based economy, and it makes me think that Abraham Lincoln and Alexander Hamilton and maybe John F. Kennedy had been read in at some point to what the end goal was, which was to create a debt-based global economy with the intent on building this giant Ponzi scheme that allows the power elite to control all private property, and then all finance, the majority stock ownership of every major corporation in the world, which seems to be where we're heading right now, and then crash that system and confiscate all of the wealth of the world, so all of the real estate and all of the ownership of all the corporations, and at that time, then deploy this kind of command style economy that's based on credit instead of on debt. And that way you create this economic slavery. And what's interesting to me about it, and I actually want to talk to Matthew Arrett about this, is the idea that if those guys had been read in, like this is older than 1903, right? It might be older than 1776. That this is an old plan, right? This is a long-term goal for taking over control of the world. That if those guys were read in, then what Alexander Hamilton was really trying to do is that he was looking around and saying, hey, we have our own continent here. And I know I'm repeating myself, and I know that somebody criticized me in the comments below that they claim that America is not really that North America is not really energy independent, and I reject that argument wholesale. But the idea is that if you did create an economy before taking control of the global situation, then you could create a nation that had this kind of unlimited amount of economic power, which occurred to me that might have been what Alexander Hamilton was trying to do, and he wound up getting shot by somebody from the founder of Wall Street, Aaron Burr, or Henry Carey was the Secretary of the Treasury for Abraham Lincoln. He winds up getting shot, right? And John F. Kennedy winds up doing the silver certificate thing. So when I got to 20, I spent a long time reading that and rereading it and then going back and looking at the original, and then going back and looking at the American system of economy. And there's enough overlap there that to make me go, And oh yeah, this was written in 1903 and supposedly was written in Russian, and there's just a lot of calculation there.
Now, you said, I think you might have misspoke on one of those. You said Jefferson when you meant Hamilton. I think everybody knew you meant Hamilton with the American system.
I did. Yeah, I did mean Hamilton. Yeah.
And I would like to ask the audience just one favor: is as you purchase the books for relatives and friends, and as you're making these purchases, just send a message just saying, I just bought it, so that we can be flashing up, I just bought it, I just bought it, I just bought it. Just to give the audience an idea that what we, and I know this may sound like, David and Goliath trying to knock down the giant here. But if we don't support the people who put their neck out there and have the courage to face the monster and throw the perfect smooth stone and hit the giant right, I mean, this book hits the giant right in the temple, right? If we don't have the courage to support that person, then that person's going to get overwhelmed. And what we want to do is get that message out to the world and get, Peter's going to do as much as he can on his own, but you as a consumer of the book can do a lot. Another purchase? Oh, awesome. You can do a lot by writing a great review and give them 5 reviews. We had 7 people write reviews, all 5s. That's just awesome. People who don't know who Peter Duke is all over the world are going to be looking at what's in democracy this month. And they're going to see number 3. One of them is Ted Cruz, and then the next one's Peter Duke. Well, who's this Peter Duke? And then they're going to buy, they're going to buy the book, and then they're going to get somebody else. And it's the way of creating a groundswell.
Right. And what I really like about it, and again, I have been working on Reframing Reality for over a year, and this was kind of like a little side project. When I was talking to Paul Cottrell, he didn't realize that this wasn't the original book that I'd been talking about working on for a while. But to the point that you're making, and what I see going on in the comments, is that this does the approach, the metadata approach, which Douglas Reed talked about in 1956 when he wrote his book, Controversy of Zion, which gave me this big aha moment. Because when I read what he was doing, I was thinking that's kind of what George does, is that, he takes a step back and he looks at the metadata. And once you do that, then there's a big aha there. And it seems to be the last chapter that I put in about Lord Northcliffe. It seems the appearance is that it was important enough for whoever the power elite are that people not look into this, that there was like a full court press put on, including the elimination of Lord Northcliffe from his ability to manage his own business and his untimely death. That they didn't want people talking about this or doing that. And my assumption is if you take the cultural relevance out of it, it becomes so kind of unimpeachable as far as the information that's in there, that it really does kind of trigger a little critical thinking in people. And I think that that's, kind of the most important thing. Karma Doc says, is it on Audible yet? No. But George, I got this idea for promoting the book. So last night, so part of the reason.
Shout out quick to the 101 for the real frontline doctors. She's 101 Airborne Kosovo, carried the M4 in Kosovo. So that's Karma Doc. Go ahead.
So one of the things that I wanted to do, I did those summaries of each principle because I kind of wanted to create a cheat sheet for myself as far as being able to go through all of these things. And I don't have them memorized. I probably will at some point, but I don't have them memorized. But one of the things that I did is that I took a summary of the preface and a summary of the afterword, and then all those summaries that I already created. I put them into ChatGPT and I asked it to write me a script for a 30-second promotional video, a 60-second, 120, and a 180-second promotional video, and it spit out all these scripts. And then I was thinking, after I did that, we'll see if I have time to actually do that, execute on those things. But then I started thinking about all the quotes that I have in the beginning. And the first is George Webb saying, it's all in the metadata. So I'm going to ask you to record in your phone, it's all in the metadata, George, because what I want to do is do the same thing I did with Harry Truman. And I want to have Winston Churchill's voice do the Winston Churchill thing. I don't know if there's any Neville Chamberlain recordings. I'm sorry, not Neville Chamberlain. I meant Woodrow Wilson. Woodrow Wilson's, and I don't think that there's no Benjamin Disraeli recording. So I'll have to go figure out what I think Benjamin Disraeli sounded like. But I wanted to kind of do the quotes at the beginning of the book in the voices of the people who actually said them.
Well, it's going to be interesting because people are going to see all the initial quotes and they're going to say, Churchill and G.E. Lawrence and all these other famous people. They're going to go, who the hell is George? But anyway, what I wanted after this book was done is I wanted the author's voice. I wanted the author's analysis. I wanted to know what the author's treatment or the author's critique was of the book, like the sort of Peter Duke companion summary of what and sort of applied to now, like how do you think, because like you said, everybody looks at it through their own lens. After I read it, I said Kissinger, but after you read it or somebody else reads it, they're going to apply different people. It's going to resonate different bells with different people through the history. That's kind of, I wanted something about the same amount of length, like what do you think it means book.
Right. Yeah. I started to do that, but I didn't do it for two reasons. One is I didn't want to color it. I really kind of wanted to leave it as an antiseptically clean rendering, so that people could come to their own conclusions. I didn't want them to think what I thought. I really wanted to use it as a way to stimulate critical thinking in people. And today the paperback, tomorrow Reframing Reality. Yes, tomorrow Reframing Reality. I wanted to do that, but yeah, but like I said about Principle 20, I look at that Principle 20 and Principle 20 and 21 in the book, and I look at that and I look at all of the things that are going on economically right now, or have been going on certainly since 1913 in the United States with the creation of the Federal Reserve Bank. and this was written 10 years before the Federal Reserve Bank was created. And on chapter 19, yeah. I didn't. I wanted to allow people to come to their own conclusions about things, and but I thought that it was important as an in the afterword to let people know what happened to Lord Northcliffe, and Douglas Reed too. I mean, Douglas Reed was kind of the original victim of being accused of anti-Semitism when I don't think he was an anti-Semite. I don't in any way, shape, or form. I think he was a journalist and he was reporting things as he saw them.
Well, that's the other thing I wanted after the end of the book is I wanted to know more about the Lord Northcliffe story because, you know, he started the Daily Mirror, he started the, you know, the Times of London, right? And the Daily Mail, you know, these are like the New York Times and Boston, you know, of the United States, you know, the New York Times and Wall Street Journal of the United States. So I wanted to, and I had remembered that Northcliffe and Lawrence of Arabia had gotten into it, even to the point where some people even accused Northcliffe of being somehow involved in the death of Lawrence of Arabia, right?
I'm not sure about that, but I did go ahead and purchase because they weren't very expensive. One of the books that Reed references in his book in The Controversy of Zion is the History of the Times in 2 volumes that was published in, I don't know, 1946 or something. And it's a history of the Times of London. There's a lot in that book about the intrigues that you're talking about. And I bought it on a whim. It wasn't very expensive. And I opened it up and I said, gosh, there's an entire like kind of bird walk that you can take in this book just with all of that stuff.
Because there's like this Anglo-American, you know, axis, if you will, through history, at least since Plymouth Rock, right? And the one thing that united us before being a country and after was the newspapers. You know, Boston Globe goes back to like 1607 or something, you know, and New York Times goes back a long, long way, and Pulitzer and all that. By the way, I'm trying to figure out what category you fit in for the prizes. I don't want to jump to the award shows already.
I don't want a prize. Prizes all seem to be completely compromised. I mean, you're being anointed by the power elite when you get a prize. So I'm not sure. I think that the prize that I want people to wake up and understand what's going on.
Well, I thought like if there was AI prizes, so like AI media awards, meaning that you used AI in a creative way to bring some kind of media alive, and you could call them the AIM Awards. I thought maybe that would be good.
The AIM?
The
AIM AI with the AI Media Awards.
In media, yeah, using artificial intelligence in a way in media to retell a story or tell it in a better way or tell it in a more clear way or concise way or
that's a pretty good idea, George.
Yeah, I think we should start the AIM Awards this year, and then hopefully somebody will pick it up. I thought Spielberg would be the perfect guy. You know,
he's not going to like my book.
No. The Shoah Foundation.
He won't read it, but somebody will tell it. Yeah, the Shoah Foundation is probably not going to be happy that I used their name in order to protect myself from the slings and arrows of outrageous fortune. But
you couldn't give this book in its 1903 form as a Christmas gift to somebody to red pill them. First of all, you'd be called.
You would never get invited to Thanksgiving again.
Yeah. You would be called an anti-Semite and so forth. But if you give this book as a gift, as sort of a stealth red pill, what you end up doing is go, where did this come from? The question is going to be, this seems like this happened. The first thing 2 hours later, you're going to go, this kind of happened. That's right. The thing that kind of sneaks up on you in this book. And then at the end, you go, where did this come from? And then you go, oh, this isn't that old. This is back to 1905. And then you go through how many hands this thing has actually gone through, like 20 different hands since 1820. So it's not maybe even 1905. It could even be before.
Well, I mean, Reed in his book kind of takes it back to at least 1776, at least back to Adam Weishaupt. So,
Yeah.
And the thing that's interesting too, and Richard Grove was talking about this the other night, is that the Illuminati were atheists in that they wanted to destroy all existing religions and then replace it with their own religion. So the idea that you would assign the agency of this document to any religion, okay, is kind of paradoxical, because the people who are doing it are trying to destroy religion. And so that becomes, again, that's why taking it out of the realm of a cultural reference and just kind of looking at it as a rule book and then comparing the rule book to current events winds up becoming an exercise that kind of expands your horizon a little bit as far as saying, oh, it's this group or it's that group. It might be a few people from every group, which is kind of the way that it's laid out in there. Yeah.
And that's sort of the Kissinger story too. He's a Freemason over here, and then he's a Zionist over here, and then he's an Arab over there, and he's kind of cobbling together this little network of spies to have a finger in every pie, and he keeps, kind of rock climbing his way up, in an angular way to the top. So I kept thinking of Kissinger throughout this thing, but you could do the Alan Dulles thing with Alan Dulles, the witness tree, with Elaine Dulles going to Bretton Woods, and then you have Alger Hiss going to Bretton Woods, and one wants a gold-based economy and the other one wants a fiat economy. And just look at all these struggles that happen along the way from a monetary point of view, like the Richard Grove angle, but then there's also the espionage point of view, the Macduff point of view, where you're doing the infiltrations and spying. There's that angle to this book. So there's a lot of different angles you could pick. But it's what I think would be fun is to have a public version of this where people could then go in, put book references of what book it reminded them of, or what.
Well, one of the things I was thinking of is eventually, I'm not going to do this immediately because I'd like to sell books, but doing the Livingstone Ordo Ab Chao model, where he actually makes the book available in whatever format you want, and you can buy it if you want. But if you want to read the book, you can go to his website and just read the book on his website. Because if I do that, then I can turn comments on below each. I can post each chapter as a web page, and then
there's a thing on Amazon. There's a thing on Amazon called sticky notes, and I think you can stick your sticky note if you turn it on. The same thing, the Amazon Kindle version. You might want to look that one up.
Well, Amazon actually, they have something called Vela, which is their own version of
Those
Substack.
are novelettes. Yeah, that's sort of for the novelettes, but that's for writers who are writing, the dashing young flamboyant cavalry officer, astride his white charger, flourished in the driveway, and Anna Karenina saw him through the window. That's more the novella kind of.
Right.
That's their thing. But the sticky notes is, I follow this author. I think this author is really great. And then I think this reminds me of Aldous Huxley's this, or that. And then you can turn comments on or off. But this is a good book for jumping off points, because every one of the chapters will remind you of some historical event or some historical person or some book. And I think it would be kind of one of those kind of index books, like Tour of History.
So is it something that I can turn on the back end of Kindle?
Yeah, I think so. If you look up sticky notes, you might, the whole audience might, I might be saying more than I know right now, but I think the idea is, and I'm getting all the sticky notes that you could buy with Amazon. So
yeah, right, exactly. Kindle ebook. Let me see. edit ebook details, edit ebook content, edit pricing. There's KDP Select, which is you turn on if people have Kindle Direct, it's like Spotify for books.
Oh, so it will read in a voice. What
No,
the voice?
no. It's the business model. That is if there are people who pay X number of dollars a month for Kindle Unlimited.
Oh,
And,
all you can eat.
and if you add your book to that, then you get a few pennies for everybody who reads your book, but your audience is potentially much bigger. I didn't opt into that because I'm not sure that that's the way that I want to go right now.
Well, I'll look more into it. I didn't mean to. I might be completely wrong on what I think it is, but when I went to the book, it said, "Would you like? Would you like to?" So it's something called Kindle Scribe. On Kindle Scribe, you can add sticky note to take handwritten notes in the supported book formats.
Interesting. Where do I turn on Kindle Scribe?
If you look at it at the bottom of your book listing, Self-Power and the Illusion of Democracy, if you look at it, you'll see the page length is 144. It's English language. And then it says sticky notes, Kindle Scribe. And then on Kindle Scribe, it seems like there's some way that you can add your handwritten notes to the electronic version, like somebody might do for a real paperback book. You see what I mean? Like a lot of people buy the paperback because they want to make handwritten notes or put sticky notes in there. Like you see some people, they have the book and there's like 100 different color notes.
Right. Okay. So, but I've got the page up. So it's on this page someplace.
Yeah, it's after you have the book description. Oh,
yeah.
You're just different. Yours is different. This must be from a reader point of view. You can add sticky notes.
Are you in Kindle Reader?
Oh, it must be for just the Kindle readers. Okay, you're right. They give you a special pen that you can get. Oops, a pen, and then you can.
Here, let me take this away so people can see that. Okay.
You get a special pen, and then you can make handwritten notes on the version of the book in Kindle Reader. So that's Kindle Scribe. So I'm sorry I said something completely different than what it is.
Yeah, one of the comments that I got yesterday was somebody said F Amazon. And it's like there's something subversive about using the power elite's weapon against the power elite, I think.
2 days ago, your message wasn't in Zimbabwe.
Right.
Today in Zimbabwe, you can buy your book.
Right.
So I think that's the real way to F Amazon is to buy the book and especially if you're in Zimbabwe, because there's a lot of people, that Stephen Hatfield may have sprayed with anthrax there. So you might want this book more than anybody.
It's interesting too, because one of the things that I did when I wrote the first chapter is that I wanted to kind of protect myself from being accused of being an anti-Semite. And again, the entire purpose of this exercise was to remove that element from the content. When WordPress was invented as a platform, one of the things that was unique about WordPress, actually it's HTML4. HTML4, there's a content layer and then there's a presentation layer. And the content layer is in HTML and the presentation layer is in cascading style sheet. And I apologize if I'm spurging out here, but what I wanted to do is get rid of the style sheet. I wanted to get rid of the style sheet. And as part of doing that, I gave my credentials as having designed the online education system called iWitness for the Shoah Foundation Institute, and having been a consultant to the Simon Wiesenthal Center and Rabbi Abraham Cooper directly. I did that in the 90s. I'm sorry, I did that in the early 2000s. I needed to put that credential up there in order to kind of protect myself from the tsunami that will show up at some point. And when I was running it through the algorithm, though, when I was running it through GPT and having it summarize and stuff, it was doing a really good job of highlighting my credentials as a shield, as it were, against that accusation. So it made me feel good that even the algorithm was recognizing it.
Yeah, I wrote a review, but it won't show it. I mentioned the Shoah Foundation. I'm sure that they struck it down. But I just said, the only person who could really write this book is somebody who had worked for one of the Jewish organizations, because it's sort of like, if you're a rapper, you can say the N-word, but if you're not,
Yep.
if you're a rapper, you can go off,
I have the Norman Finkelstein glow.
But yeah. You're protected. You're immune, really. A couple times over, but for who you've worked for, with Spielberg in there as well. So I think I love that part about this. And the only thing I'm left with at the end is this, like when we did the books on Cecil Rhodes. I want to know more about Northcliffe at the end of this book,
right?
Because he ends up dominating all of British press. And then he makes one mistake
and taken out.
He publishes this and bam, dead.
He didn't even publish it. It was published by the Daily Telegraph. What he published is, I read this. Where did it come from? We need to do an investigation. And then he was gone. This LaRouche organization there's a whole other story with Henry Ford and the protocols, right? Which is like, he went for it. He assumed the headline was true and then went down that road, and it wound up costing him dearly. And LaRouche has a lot to say about that. And in fact, Zaga Nostra says that Matt Ehret's very dismissive of the protocols. It would be good to have him on to discuss. Yes, I'll send Matt a copy of the book, and then he and I can talk about it. And I'm going to specifically bring up the Principle 20. In 21, the economic components of it, because the economic components of it, like I said, you read those things, and then you say, if you know anything about the American system of economy, you start to ask yourself some questions about that stuff. Cindy said,
go ahead.
Cindy said, take orders like you did on Matches. Yes, I can do that. I can take orders, and that's a good idea. And again, I'm doing all of this stuff by myself. And it's a really interesting process because you start to learn what a publisher actually does when you're doing it yourself. It's kind of like journalism. You start off being the researcher, and then you wind up trying to figure out what the reporter's job is, and then you try to figure out what the editor's job is, and then you try to figure out what the publisher's job is. Because when you're doing it by yourself, you're wearing all the hats. You're doing it all.
Peter, I'll just say, I've been down this road, neighborhood news, publishing our own, binding our own, did the whole thing, sending it out. It's a full-time job, and it's prone to vandalism along the way, to make you look bad. And I would say the best way to do your own books is to get 50 of them, and then go to the local thing and do the book signing. Go to a local vendor, coffee shop, whatever, and do the book signing, or a park or whatever. And that way you get the author experience, and you have a discussion group, we talk about the book, and then you walk away with the book. And I know that adds to the expense of the reader, but you're going to Southern California. You're looking out over the Pacific Ocean. It's not like you're going to Schenectady. It's not like you're going to Temperance, Michigan, where we had to convince people to go to Temperance, Michigan. It's not even Detroit. We didn't even have Detroit as an attraction. We couldn't even say go to see a Red Wings game. We were out in the middle of nowhere in a cornfield, right? He's on the ocean, so you get the panoramic view. So it's worth going.
Indeed. So Cindy also said, so where is the real book you're working on? The ETA. The ETA is January 2023.
You know what I would really say, Peter? Peter, you you probably don't see the big nature of this just yet. But this is a book that's been around for 120 years, if not way longer.
Right.
Okay, that has been sequestered and censored, and it's been poisoned to everybody's career and life. If they've said anything about this book, this is the one it's worse than the porn.
It's the third rail of book.
Yeah, it's brown paper wrapper. Okay, and you've somehow put it through the metadata slicer so that people can now give this and in open company, and so it's kind of like an underground society now being in power. You were Protestant and afraid Bloody Mary was going to cut your head off, and then all of a sudden Queen Mary is now the queen, and now you can go to the Globe Theater and watch the plays. It is one of those things where you can now send this book to someone else, and there is a big red pill message in this book. So I would not push. I mean, if this is my advice to you, author to author, I guess.
Sure. Look, I'm not
do
gonna,
the shows and get your name out there first, and be number one for a while, and then everybody will say, "Where's Peter Duke's next book?"
Yeah, well, I'm going to take the B.H. Liddell Hart approach to this, and I'm gonna go where there's the least resistance. And if the least resistance is going in the direction of promoting this book, then that's where I'm gonna go, and that's what it feels like. That's where it feels like it's going. Reframing Reality is still a project that I'm going to complete. It's not that I've forgotten about it, but I was telling Paul Cottrell this morning that the framework, and again, spoiler for Reframing Reality, but I've been delayed releasing it, so I don't have a problem like kind of giving away part of the juice here. Is that that I think that there is a organization structure, a power structure of the world that has prisoners of the cave as defined by Plato on the bottom, and you've got the power elite at the top, and then on top of the prisoners of the cave, you have true believers. True believers are people who participate in politics. On top of the true believers, you have handlers. Handlers' jobs are to manage the true believers on behalf of the power elite, but they don't know that they're working for the power elite. I'm sorry, I said assets. I meant assets. On top of assets is handlers. Handlers are the Henry Kissingers, the Edward Mandell Houses, the Barack Obamas. Okay, because they're not at the top of the power structure. Okay, if you know their name, they're probably not in the power elite. There may be a few Rothschilds that you've heard of because you read a book on the Rothschilds, but their names are not in the news. They're not headliners, because the people who are in the news, their job is to suffer the slings and arrows of outrageous fortune. There's a reason that Kamala Harris is the vice president of the United States, and it's so that she can be the sponge for your angst. And you can take all of your angst and you can aim it at her, because you think that you're operating in this political system. And what you don't realize is that she hasn't been elected. She's been selected, and she was specifically put there in order to attract your angst. That's why she's there.
I would have been more impressed all the times that I stood next to her. If I knew she was going to be vice president, I would have spent more time asking her questions. But task force used to ask her questions all the time. She'd go outside and they'd do these things on the lawn. So she definitely was selected. She had 1%. She was out of the primary so quickly. Speaking of that, we have a debate, I think, a three-way debate tomorrow night in Alabama. No, Wednesday night. Yeah, that's tomorrow night in Alabama, in Tuscaloosa.
And who's in the debate?
Ramaswamy, the 3-inch J.D. Rockefeller Jr. in 3-inch heels. And then we have Nikki Haley, and then Ron DeSantis. Those are the only three that are left. And Trump is not going to be there. So I don't know if I'm going to go.
Is Trump going to counter program with Tucker or something like didn't he do that before where he just counter programmed them?
Yeah, and with his lead right now, I think the latest one was still 50 or 48, 45, something like that. And Iowa is only a month away, or about a month and 6 weeks, I guess, maybe at the most. So he really doesn't have to do any counter programming and take any chances, but maybe he will. It'd be interesting to see if somebody before the show's over knows what Trump's plans are for tomorrow night. I think a watch party for Trump's point of view makes a lot of sense. I didn't mean to shift to politics, but I just
no. It's fine, and it's a good segue to my wife found there was an interview she wanted to listen to between Kamala Harris and who was the interviewer? I don't know. Kamala Harris did some kind of like long form interview a couple of days ago, or within the last couple of days, where she basically revealed all of the agenda of the New World Order and the direction that things are going. And so Kamala Harris's interview combined with stealth power and the illusion of democracy is kind of a good combo. But she was reading, she couldn't find a video of it, but she found a transcript and she was reading it out loud to me. And this is something that we do a lot in my house now, is that we don't watch videos, we read stuff to each other. And it winds up becoming a much better way to engage your critical thinking skills. But some of the lines that Kamala Harris was saying in the interview, when they were read out loud by my wife, made us both hysterically laugh out loud. And that's unironic. And at one point after we got finished laughing, I looked at her and I said, do you think that we would have been able to laugh this hard at Kamala Harris if we were registered to vote? And she said, there's no way. There's no way that I would because we would be so angry. We would be so upset and bothered. But because we unregistered to vote, we could read Kamala Harris like it's the National Lampoon.
Well, it is funny. The things she does say is funny. The wheels on the bus. It's always funny to go back to that video. I guess Chris Christie's going to be there tomorrow night. So for people who are looking for, you got to have somebody who says Trump's a criminal, right? In the GOP, you have to have a rhino. So even though Chris Christie in no way could qualify, they've bent the rules in such a way that now they're allowing Chris Christie to be there as well, to give him more time, like he needs more time. So it's going to be one of those things. Trump, I guess, is going to be, he will attend a fundraiser in Florida at the same time. And, you know, when I was the last week I spent in Mar-a-Lago or near Mar-a-Lago every day, trying to talk to the people coming and going, he's just doing these fundraisers. And while these other people are out spending money, Trump is having people come into Mar-a-Lago and he's signing everything that you can sign, and, you know, $1,000 a plate type dinners, one after another. And so are the kids are also doing that. So unlike the other candidates who don't have the star power kids, he's got Ivanka and the two boys. So he's really, and Melania. So it's a whole family of them. And there's something going on every night, every afternoon with the fundraising. Right. And so I just
it's the season.
Yeah,
it's fundraising season. Yeah. It's funny that you mentioned Chris Christie though, because so Jack Posobiec retweeted me yesterday with his 2.2 million followers. He retweeted my book, and it's funny because one of the person's comments was, F Amazon, and then whenever I see a comment like that that's so weak, I always go and I look at the account, and it always looks like some bot signature reduction account. And so I made some art to go with my weak signature reduction analysis. And here's the art, George.
Is that Chris Christie?
This is somebody who either is ex-military or wanted to be in the military, and so they're dressed like they're military. But they're really they've got a signature reduction contract from that building next to the Irish pub in Alexandria that we were at, and so I rendered it a few different ways. And his job is to go out and comment on Peter Duke and Jack Posobiec's and George Webb's Twitter account in order to own them. And
that is Chris Christie. I mean, now Chris Christie is on your case, Peter. Well, you couldn't have any better guy to retweet you. And Jack just went up a couple of notches in credibility for me, because I think a lot of people think, Jack plays a little too safe sometimes. So that is nice to see. And Roger Stone, if you're out there listening, and Roger should have you on the show. This is what I'm saying, is these guys need content, right? And
it is, but my book is very dangerous. The second part of the title is The Illusion of Democracy, and democracy being an illusion doesn't fit their business model very well. So
it's a way of showing your courage. If you really believe in this free speech, this radical thought, you don't have all the mamby-pamby milk toasters that will, take a 2-iron out and, play it safe in the middle of the fairway. Sometimes you got to give the big sticks, who swing for the fences. You got to give them, the Tiger Woods types, you got to give them a platform every once in a while too. And that's this book. So I reach out to Steve Bannon. Here's your chance to prove that you're not a sellout.
I have to take a couple of your shirts and put them underneath this jacket, though, in order to do the full Steve Bannon, because he wears 2 polo shirts under his farm jacket. So,
well, Steve, if you're out there, here's your chance. Louder with Crowder would be a good venue for people.
I'm ready for Ben Shapiro.
Ben Shapiro, Rogan. I mean, this is a Joe Rogan type topic, right? I mean, this is a topic for all time.
We'll see.
Yeah. So, I mean, all of these people who profess to have the free speech platform, here's your shot. Shoot your shot.
Yeah, Sergeant Stadenko says $7 for 143 pages of perfection. I'll buy it shortly after the show. Yes, do that, Sarge, and go leave a review. The reviews are really important right now. They're the most important thing right now, is to especially buy the book and then leave the review. And
I urge people, when you do leave a review, say, I can't wait for Peter Duke to do this, because that also is your chance to talk to the author and say, I found this so great, and this is what I want to hear more of in the next book that Peter does.
Yeah, ask me questions.
Ask questions, and also say what you think. Like Northcliffe, I really want to see a nice documentary on Northcliffe tonight. And there was another Irish guy, because he died in 22, right around the time of Sinn Féin and the Irish Troubles, and there was this other guy, Griffin, that died at about the same time. So I'm torn between, was it because they were trying to take out these Irish voices, or was it because he had run into trouble with T.E. Lawrence from World War I, or was this because he had done the let's do the investigation, or in the Zion, or what?
I want to think that the Irish question is touched on a little bit in Controversy of Zion. I could go back and look.
There it is. I mean,
yeah.
That's what I'm saying. With this book, you can look at any group that's kind of been squashed, and then look at what's your strategy going to be for being unsquashed. And this is kind of one of those. It's not a rules for radicals, because rules for radicals is just like
it's tactical. This is strategic.
Yeah, we're already in power. Let's go ahead and let's say I worked on an anthrax vaccine for 11 years, and I had all these soldiers. I did 3 different, Gulf War I, Gulf War II, and then 9/11. I had all these first responders take it, and I got all these side effects. I'll just go ahead and be the person who says I'm the white knight, right? And I'll forget. And I'll blame people who are actually trying to get answers for the people who got these injured. I'll just say that they're making stuff up, right? I'll just do the rules for radicals thing where I'll blame my people asking me questions and say they're the bad guys that did it. That's a very reflexive Hillary Clinton thing. If you're the DNC and you're already in power, you can have those kind of tactical rules for radicals kind of strategies. But this is, you're on the bottom of the barrel and you want to be on the top, no matter how long it takes. It's a big strategy document, and more importantly, it happened. That's the juice.
Indeed. I just wanted to sidebar. I wanted to tell you that my wife finished The Witness Tree yesterday, and she cried at the end of the. And I said, "Are you crying because the book? What?
That was a completely different book. That was Big Mother.
Oh, I apologize. Time out.
Okay.
That was Big Mother. She cried. She didn't cry at the end of Witness Tree. She's reading 2 books. We're reading one book in the morning, one book in the evening, and she's reading Witness Tree in the evening. She finished Big Mother by Jason Horsley.
When you're done with 1984 and Winston and this other woman are running from the cameras all the time and hiding in the corners and stealing kisses here and there, and they're trying to have their love bloom while they're trying to live under this oppressive totalitarian society. At the end, it is sad when he gets put into the cage with the rats eating out his eyes. I mean, that's kind of a bad end. You don't.
Well,
like
I totally messed up this segue. So.
Well, I could see Witness Tree, how it could be sad at the end, because if this character Ellen Dulles falls in love with this kind of if I understand the book, there's this.
But I think that her husband gets killed early in the book.
But she falls in love with this Russian communist guy.
Right, yeah.
And then there's this underground Zionist organization as well that are vying in the book. So there's a love affair, I think, in there, in Witness Tree.
Yeah.
So
anyway. With that, let me hit the last 4 comments,
okay.
and then we could talk to. I'm going to talk to Paul Cottrell tomorrow, and then Paul Cottrell's going to join us on this show on Thursday.
And also, Peter, people should send suggestions of who else you watch, and who Peter should appear on. In the comments, say, "Oh, you should do."
I've got some. Roseanne was one.
Yeah, somebody said Roseanne. I'd love to talk to Roseanne.
Oh, Roseanne would be a good one for you.
Yeah.
I mean, Tommy Kerrigan would be a good one for you, Peter. I know you might not,
I love Tom. Look, I don't begrudge many people for anything. I mean, like I said, I'm happy to do Ben Shapiro at this point, because I have a framework now for dealing with Ben Shapiro that I didn't have before. And that comes from doing all of the research that I've done.
Charlie Kirk would be a good one for you.
Yeah, again, I would, but the whole premise of my book destroys the Charlie Kirk business model. So it'll be interesting.
If they have that much courage, then here we go.
Okay. Here we go. Karmadoc says, is it on Audible yet? No, but it's a short enough book that I've been taking. I am going to do an experiment with 11 Labs, which I have trained with my own voice, to see if I could. I'm a terrible reader. Like, I'm not very good at reading out loud. I practice every morning. My wife and I, we read books out loud to each other every morning. And I'm not a very good reader, even though I do it every day. And so I was going to see if I could get 11 Labs trained with my voice to see if I could get it done. Although it probably would be better if it was,
John O'Loughlin would be a great voice actor.
Well, I invite John O'Loughlin to read my. I'm not going to copyright strike him if he wants to read my book the way that he reads books online. I'm happy to have him do that. So.
Every author that I've met that John has read their book, they've said the same thing. It was a pleasure to listen to John read me my book. Yeah. I've heard Ed Haslam say that. I've heard Doug Valentine say that.
Right.
So that's, I think, the best audio version is going to be what McDuff is planning on doing.
Yeah, and somebody was Audible. Let me get rid of this. I had another idea and it just went into my head and then out of my head. Ed Nelson says, are you going to put any part of the new book online for free, Peter, as a sample? It is on Kindle, which means that if you go to the web page, the Amazon web page, you can click read a sample, or if you go to the dukereport.com and you click on the Stealth Power book, which is right up at the top of the page. Not as high as George would like it, but it's right up at the top of the page. Then when you go to the Duke Report page, then you have the same Kindle preview. And I think it gives you basically the whole first chapter of the book, which is it's a good chapter. I mean, it really kind of sets up the whole book. So yes, the answer is yes, it's there. It's already implemented. And all you have to do is go click on it.
Peter, this is one of those things like, have you read War and Peace or have you seen Gone with the Wind? People always,
those are long books, George.
Well, I'm just saying, like, have you read 1984? Have you read Animal Farm? It's a classic. This is a classic book. Or the Communist Manifesto, or Clue Train Manifesto in our time. It's one of those books where if you meet somebody at a party or whatever, you talk about protocols of Zion. You couldn't say it. You couldn't say protocols, and now you can say principles. You couldn't talk about this book without being accused of being an anti-Semite. So
right,
now
and I changed it from protocols to principles because Benjamin Disraeli, who was born a Jew, who became an Anglican, called them principles. Okay, so I thought, well, I'm going with Benjamin Disraeli on this one. What I was going to say, I probably should put this as a note in the book, in whatever the next version of the book is. And I have updated the book. I did find a couple of typos, and George knows that you can do this. So you can go in and you can incrementally change the book. So one version of the book might be slightly different than the next version because I went in and found out that I bolded 3 words and I shouldn't have bolded them, and I unbolded them, and then I redid it. But there were 2 sentences in the book that my wife and I were going over and over with last night in the published book that I wound up changing. And that's because the original version of the protocols is not a very good translation. I think that it was done in a very kind of rushed way, and it's only been done once. I think that the writer for the Daily Telegraph who did the translation from Russian into English had one crack at it, and then it became such a lightning rod that I think that the British Museum threw the thing in a safe, and I don't think it's seen the light of day since. And I'm hypothesizing there. I'm not sure that that's true, but it seems to me that there has been only one translation of it ever. And it wasn't a great translation. It wasn't like an Oxford level translation. It was a reporter who spoke Russian and English who did it in a hurry. And so are a couple of places in it where there's a sentence or two that doesn't really make sense. And I went back for the 3rd time last night and reread those individual sentences and then what the interpretation of ChatGPT was in order to be able to translate the meaning of that sentence. And it's still a little garbled because the original was a little garbled. So like 0.1% of the book, it looks like a typo or it looks like it doesn't make any sense, but that's because that was what the original was like. So.
Well, I wanted to, this book is like one of those super highways where there's lots of places along the way that you have exit points where you can go off and do kind of spend a tourist day if you wish, because there's a subversion chapter, there's a spying chapter, there's a monetary chapter, and so forth. It's one of those books that kind of make you think about a lot of other books along the way. And one of the interesting things about Northcliffe, just at the end, which is that here's a quote: "Next to the Kaiser, wrote the esteemed editor and journalist A.G. Gardiner, Lord Northcliffe has done more than any other man to bring about the war, meaning the First World War. So he is sort of the guy who is our, yellow journalist that we had during the Spanish-American War.
Right.
With the
William
Hearst.
Randolph Hearst. Yeah.
Yeah. This is the guy in England. So he had to be hoity-toity on the inside. Everybody's happy with him until 1918. So what could flip this? What is so incendiary about this that he's dead 4 years later? It's a question I want to know. I don't have the answer. I want to know the answer.
So Ardag said, how did you stumble onto this book considering its negative views? Well, I've known about it for years, but there is a follower on this channel, JBTG73, I think I can never remember because it's a bunch of letters. And in the chat on this channel, every time I mentioned certain things, and I don't even remember what they are, he said, Douglas Reed, Douglas Reed, Douglas Reed, controversy of Zion, controversy of Zion, controversy of Zion. And again, these books are taboo, right? And I worked at the Show Foundation Institute, and I worked for the Simon Wiesenthal Center, and I look at books like that, and I think, oh, these are bad people writing bad things, and I shouldn't look at them. And I opened Douglas Reed's book, and I started reading it, and I thought, Douglas Reed seems like like David Irving. Okay, you could, now the ADL come after me. Okay, Steven Spielberg paid for the attorneys for the opposition to David Irving. Okay, and I mentioned David Irving in a Show Foundation meeting once, and I got a lot of looks. It's like I didn't know that Spielberg was paying for the attorney to sue him at the time. But I read, if you get Stealth Power, you will understand that I read what Douglas Reed had to say about the protocols, and he had a suggestion. That's the whole reason that this book came about, was that Douglas Reed had this metadata approach for looking at it. And I thought, well, I've got tools now. I've got ChatGPT, and I've got the ability to actually do the entire book, what Douglas Reed did in one paragraph. And so it was Douglas Reed. That's why I dedicated the book to Douglas Reed, because if he hadn't said that, and if he hadn't done that, then I wouldn't have gotten the idea for this. So there it is. Aviatrix says, choosing to watch the Duke Report is the new vote. Yes, I hope so. I hope that getting people to think critically is the end game here. Hunter Gatherer says, I'm going to set a few copies free on the public transport system in Australia. Yeah, DM me on that, because there are these little in my neighborhood, they have these things called little libraries, which are kind of like boxes that sit in front of people's houses, where people kind of trade books with one another. And if people want to do that, maybe I can figure out a way to get authors' copies to people who, if they want to kind of give them away like that, just to kind of red pill neighborhoods.
Library. I did this with Macduff's book as well. The best thing you could do is give this book to a library, because it sounds like, that'll hurt the sales. But what'll happen is they'll put it on one of those little display things, and they put new author, and then people come in and look at it, and they say, it's only $7 or it's $10 for. Well, I'll just buy the book,
right?
And so a library is another great place. And then have a talk with the library. Say, hey, I know the author, and blah blah blah. And
I could just go into the library and say, hey, can I give you a book and have a book signing here?
Yeah. But this is one of those books where it's sort of like Lady Chatterley's Lover, right? I mean, not the pornographic side, but I'm just saying it's one of those unspoken books you're not allowed to talk about, right?
Right.
And now it's been defanged, and now you can talk about it. So I think for librarians, especially people who are interested in freedom of speech, would be the kind of the target market.
Yeah.
Bookstore owners is another one where you get it and put it in the in the thing, in the window.
Indeed, indeed. All right. So Charles Held says Bill Cooper included it in his book "Behold a Pale Horse." Good point about the translation. Yeah. Uh, Again, when you pull all of the cultural references out of it, you can look at it without feeling dirty, right? You can without feeling like, oh, I'm Adolf Hitler if I read this. Like that's kind of the net of the original, at least the stigma that it's got. And I've taken all that stigma out. So you can just, and again, and Douglas Reed says in his book, that, and I quote Douglas Reed in my book, that he doesn't know who wrote it, and it doesn't matter, because if you look at if you look at the game plan, and then you look at history, and you realize that they're the same, then your next question is, okay, well, if it wasn't this group of people, then who is it? And that will lead you into a critical thinking inquiry space. And last but not least, Hamish62 says, we'll nab the paperwork before December is out, Peter. Okay, great. Terrific. I urge everybody to go out and get the book as soon as you can. And if not for any other reason, just so that you understand what I understood when I started to write the book, because I think it's, making money is nice, but getting the word out and more importantly, getting people to think critically about stuff is the most important part of the exercise here. So that's where I'm coming from.
And remember, Macduff only has to read like 3, like the preamble of the Constitution. And then you can use the 11 labs to bring the whole thing to life. You know what I mean?
Yeah. I mean, I think democracy is fake, but I'm still a big fan of provide for the general defense, promote the general welfare, and deliver the blessings of liberty to us and our posterity. I'm still all in on that. I just don't know how to get it accomplished at this point. So anyway, all right. Well, I'll see if you're watching Paul Cottrell tomorrow, I'll be on Paul Cottrell's show. And then, although I don't think he does that live, I think he records it and then he puts it up like Tommy. And then I'll see you again on Thursday. If you want to take care of George Webb, we didn't talk about any of George Webb stuff today, but if you want to see what George is up to, you can go onto his Twitter and you can listen to his spaces, which are always informative and great. You can go to his Substack at georgewebb.substack.com. And you can become a member or a subscriber to George's Substack, or you can go to buymeacoffee.com/GeorgeWebb, no E, and the number 1, which is immediately below George's smiling face there. And if you want to support the Duke Report, you can A, go buy the book. B, you can go to buymeacoffee.com/the Duke Report and become a member of the Duke Report. C, you can go to thedukereport.com/shop. You can buy yourself an edgy t-shirt. And if you want to buy George a t-shirt, it's XXX.
Yes.
And if you buy George, if you go to thedukereport.com and buy George a XXX t-shirt, you can send it to P.O. Box Business Suite Supercenter, 1227 North Peachtree Parkway, Box 189, Peachtree City, Georgia, 30269. And with that, George, I will see you again on Thursday. Oh, one more thing.
Paul Cottrell Super Antigens on Thursday. Paul Cottrell on Thursday.
Paul Cottrell Super Antigens on Thursday. And I told Paul, I said, I'm going to sit back and let you guys talk about this because, again, I'm going to be driving the back of the fire engine on this one with 2 hook and ladders on the front. It'll
be unwieldy. Super Antigens. Thursday.
Paul Cottrell, George Webb, Super Antigens. I will see you there. Thanks, George. Bye-bye.
Thank you, Peter.